everybody, it's Jeff from New York, and we are back in Manhattan today, and I have a question for you. Name the most famous street in Manhattan. Now, you ask anyone in the world that same question, and you're basically going to come up with two different answers, one being Broadway and the other one being 42nd Street. And where those two famous streets intersect, well, there you have Times Square. Today we're going to walk 42nd Street from river to river. We're here at the east end of 42nd Street at the East River, and that was the UN buildings that you saw that opened this video, and we were standing right above the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Drive, or the FDR Drive as it's known locally. And we're going to head towards the west end of 42nd Street, all the way to the Hudson River. So we're going to see everything in between. Right now we're crossing First Avenue, and we're going to continue west. Now, I just said we were crossing across First Avenue, and just as a rule of reference for the streets in Manhattan, the ones that run north and south are typically named Avenue. So you have First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, Madison, Lexington, and Park Avenues. They all run north and south. Now, the streets that run east to west or west to east are all called streets. So you have 23rd Street, 42nd Street, which is what we're on right now, 53rd Street, and so on and so forth, all the way up into the hundreds. The exception to this street and avenue rule here in Manhattan is, of course, Broadway, which runs diagonally, so it's not designated street or avenue, it's just known as good old Broadway. Broadway has another distinction as well, as it intersects all the streets in Manhattan going diagonally. It separates them into east and west. So if you're on 23rd Street, if you're east of Broadway, you're on East 23rd Street. And if you're west of Broadway, you're on West 23rd Street. I know it gets a little complicated, but it just takes a couple of minutes to get used to, and it really helps you get around the city once you learn all this stuff. So, for example, we're going to come across the Chrysler Building and Grand Central Terminal in the next block or two, and they are east of Broadway, so those buildings would be considered on East 42nd Street. Once we cross Broadway, we're going to come across the New York Port Authority bus terminal, and that's west of Broadway, so that's going to be on West 42nd Street. Same street, there's just an east and a west of Broadway. And speaking of the Chrysler Building, there she is, my most favorite building in the world. I'm just going to cross 42nd Street real fast to get a better look at the Chrysler Building, the ground level of the Chrysler Building. And actually, I just jaywalked across 42nd Street, which jaywalking is illegal in Manhattan. I don't recommend you do it. Do as I say, not as I do. I've always been fascinated with the Chrysler Building. It's just a simply beautiful, stunning building. It's not the biggest in New York. It's not the tallest in New York, but it is, as far as I'm concerned, the most beautiful building this city has. Now, right now it's undergoing heavy renovations. You can see all this scaffolding above us and around us, and that makes me very happy because the building has been ignored for several years and it was starting to get run down. But I think New Yorkers started to really appreciate it, and it's getting a whole new facelift inside and out. Now, unfortunately, it's pretty much closed to the public right now because of all the renovations going on. So I can't go inside to videotape it, but I do plan on doing that once they're done because I'm dying to get back into this beautiful building. I was here several years ago and I took photos of the lobby. It's a beautiful lobby. And I believe you can see those photos on my narrated photo videos of New York City, which were one of the first videos I've done on this channel. I know there's a entrance to the lobby up this street, so let me see if I can, I know it's not blocked off, let me see if I can turn on the old New York charm and get inside and take some videos for you. Let's see what happens. Hello? Anyone home? Hello, let me in, I gotta do some videos. Don't you know who I am? I'm freaking Jeff from New York, I'm famous. I don't know, the old charm just ain't what it used to be. Anyway, I promised my subscribers that when that building is done, I am in there and I am going to enjoy all day in there from the top floors to the bottom ones. We're going to check out the entire building, so hopefully that'll come up shortly. This is the famous Cipriani's here on the left-hand side. It's a club and also a event venue for weddings and business events. A-listers and people with really deep pockets only, please. And across the street, that's Grand Central Terminal. Please don't call it Grand Central Station. That's not what it's called. It's called Grand Central Terminal, perhaps the busiest train terminal in the world. Inside is like a city unto itself with tons of train tracks, shopping, restaurants. That's probably in the next video on this channel, so stay tuned. Yo, I'm walking here. Don't forget to look for Cabby, who always makes a cameo appearance in all my 4K videos. Sometimes he's easy to spot, other times not so much. Be the first to comment on the timestamp where Cabby is, and I'll give you a shout out on my next video. We are now heading up to the intersection of East 42nd Street and Park Avenue, and here we have Pershing Square on the left-hand side. It's a cafe that's perfect for commuters. They serve breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch. There's a kids menu, a bar menu, there's takeout. It's a pretty famous place as far as locals are concerned. Not so much tourists, but I think its location right across from Grand Central Terminal has a lot to do with its success. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When you do, you're automatically enrolled in the next $50 gift card giveaway here on the New York channel. And while I'm at it, congratulations to I Explore Louisiana, the most recent winner of the $50 Amazon gift card giveaway here on the New York channel. And now we're crossing 42nd and Madison, Madison Avenue being one of the more famous upscale shopping streets in Manhattan. You find more boutique type stores here. Very unique stuff, very unique merchandise, high-end, expensive. As opposed to Fifth Avenue, where you find more mainstream department stores as well as high-end shops that are much more well-known, like Tiffany's and Henry Bendel. Did I just say Henry Bendel? Pardon me, I meant Henri Bendel. And on the left here we have Sephora Cosmetics. Speaking of Henri Bendel and cosmetics, years ago I was a manager at Macy's, and I was in a business meeting and I uttered the word makeup, and I was quickly corrected. It's not called makeup, it's called cosmetics. At that very same business meeting, I uttered the words pocketbook department, and I was quickly corrected once again. They're not called pocketbooks, they're called handbags. Macy's upper crust at the meeting quickly let me know that makeup is something you do with your girlfriend and pocketbook is something you buy at the bookstore. Hey, if you ever catch me on the streets of Manhattan, buy me a drink at an Irish pub. I've got lots of Macy's stories. And ladies and gentlemen, the beautiful main branch of the New York Public Library, the famous one with the lions in front. Check that video out. It just came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And there's my Chrysler. She's such a good building. And by the way, we're now at the intersection of 42nd and 5th. That's 42nd Street, which runs east and west, and 5th Avenue, which runs north and south. Are you getting the hang of it? And again, we have the New York Public Library on the left, and we're heading towards Bryant Park, which is right behind the New York Public Library. Both those videos are available on this channel. They're recent videos. And on the right-hand side, across 42nd Street, we have the Grace Building, which I spoke about in one of my videos earlier. And it was building always fascinated me, even as a child. I think it was the first building that thought outside the box with that slope. And on the left here we have Bryant Park. Again, it was a park decades ago that just was horrible with crime, but like most areas of New York City, was cleaned up in the 90s and 2000s. And this park you wouldn't even want to walk through. It was just really bad with crime, but people would walk around it to get to where they had to go. But now it's a very family-friendly, activity-friendly place. Please check that video out. Bryant Park really made a comeback like most of the parks here in New York City. Here we have just one of many food cart vendors here on the 42nd Street. In the city, we call them a roach coach. I don't know, does the rest of the country call it that in their major cities? Years ago, a local news channel did a story on these roach coaches, and it's not so much where they are during the daytime, but it's where they're parked at night in these warehouses that was really scary and disgusting. This is Tornow, and at Tornow Corner you can find out what time it is anywhere around the world. They make watches. But now that smartphones are out, you can pretty much find an app for that, so, well, whatever. Lesson of the day, don't be afraid of anyone. Perfect motto for New York City. Thank you, garbage can. And here we have Modell's on the left. Modell's is a local, or regional I should say, sporting goods store. Been around for ages. Gotta go to Moe's. That was their commercial. Been around for ages in the Sports Authority. Remember Sports Authority? They gave Modell's a pretty good run for their money. But actually Sports Authority went out of business, not Modell's. Modell's hung in there. And now Dick's, which I believe Dick's Sporting Goods is a national company, they're giving Modell's a run for their money. So let's see what happens. This is the Knickerbocker Hotel, a hotel with an awesome history. Check it out on a much earlier video here on the New York channel. And here we are coming upon the intersection of Broadway and 42nd Street, which means we are where? That's right, Times Square. I'm so proud of you people. You obviously listened at the beginning of this video, and you're so smart. Just a quick takeaway for this video. If you're a tourist and you're looking for the heart and soul of New York City, don't look in Times Square. You're not going to find it there. Same thing with New Orleans. If you're looking for the heart and soul of New Orleans, don't look on Bourbon Street if you're a tourist. You're not going to find it there either. And if you're looking for the heart and soul in Las Vegas, don't look. Well, I don't think Vegas has a heart and soul. Alrighty then, so we just crossed over Broadway, now we're west of Broadway, so now we're walking along West 42nd Street, no longer East 42nd Street. And that puts us smack dab in the middle of the theater district. This area actually used to be one of the seediest parts of 42nd Street. But in the 80s and 90s, Disney actually stepped in. They have some productions here in theaters along Broadway and in the Times Square area. And they really made some changes. I mean, it used to be run by drug dealers and prostitution and you name it, pickpockets. But Disney came in and they Disneyfied it. And if you actually Google Disneyfication, it's a real word. And here we have Ripley's Believe It or Not. I think there's one in every city I visit. I'm hoping to do a theater district video coming up shortly, but in the meantime, I have a narrated photo video of the New York Theater District, which was one of my earlier videos, so check that out on this channel. On it, I visit pretty much every theater in this area and give a little history of it. Pretty interesting. And again, just a few short decades ago, this area was run by prostitutes, drug dealers, and peep shows, and I haven't seen them. I have no idea where they even went, and trust me, I've been looking for them. She's got a 34 boy now. While we're walking to the intersection of the next street, which I believe is 8th Avenue, I just want to give a shout out to Wise Malik, who has found more cabbies than just about all of you guys on these New York videos. So try to beat him to it and see if you can find cabbie before he does. Just leave a comment below on where you spot cabbie. And the building on our left here is the Port Authority bus terminal, which pretty much connects New Jersey to New York City via the Lincoln Tunnel. Also connecting New Jersey to New York City is the Holland Tunnel, which is a little bit further south here. It connects to New York City somewhere around the Greenwich Village area. And a little bit north of here is the George Washington Bridge, which also connects New Jersey to New York City. Those are the three connections you have from New Jersey to New York City, other than the ferries as well. And we are now entering the area of Manhattan known as Hell's Kitchen, which pretty much started here on 8th Avenue and goes west to the Hudson River. By the way, these red lanes, or actually they look more pink than red, are for buses only. You find them all around the city. Some of you might be wondering where the name Hell's Kitchen came from and where did it originate from, and it actually goes all the way back to the 1880s. There was a mass murder, I shouldn't say a mass murder, but a multiple murder in this area, and a New York Times reporter asked a cop questions regarding the area, and the cop referred to the area as Hell's Kitchen. The reporter liked that name actually and printed it in his article, and the name stuck ever since. Hell's Kitchen has always had a reputation of being one of the dirtiest, seediest places in Manhattan, and it pretty much earned that reputation, really. But it has changed like all areas of Manhattan. It's really an upscale area now, high demand, and the tenants that live here are actually trying to change the name to Clinton instead of Hell's Kitchen. I like good old Hell's Kitchen. I'll do a full-blown video of Hell's Kitchen in the near future, but in the meantime, there is a photo video available on this channel of Hell's Kitchen, so check that out. So if you've noticed along our little walk here along 42nd Street, we've gone from the east end. We started out with a commercial area, the United Nations, the Chrysler Building, office buildings, and then as we got near the center of 42nd Street, it became a lot more touristy with Times Square and the Theater District. And now that we're at the west end of 42nd Street, it's a lot more residential. So a little bit of everything right here on 42nd Street. All of these residential skyscrapers in Hell's Kitchen are pretty new. Hell's Kitchen had a zoning law that didn't allow anything over 6 or 7 or 8, I'm not sure, flights to the buildings. So they were pretty much all low-income walk-up type apartments, which is also one of the reasons why it was a little slow in keeping up with the city as far as property values. But once those zoning laws were lifted and skyscraper residential buildings were allowed to be built down here, well, that's when the property values started to skyrocket. And we're going to find a lot of police vehicles, cars and trucks here. There are 2 police precincts here in Hell's Kitchen. One is the 10th and the other one is the 18th. I believe this one we're coming upon is the 10th. I could be wrong. I might have them backwards. But this is the more southern of the 2. And between the 2 of them, they pretty much patrol Midtown west of Broadway. I don't know, lots of cops. I hope they didn't see me jaywalk earlier in this video. The last thing I want is to be thrown in the pokey. Pokey? Where did that come from? Well, now that I think of it, maybe I shouldn't ask. And we are still heading west, of course, on 42nd Street, and this looks like 11th Avenue, one more block, and we're at the Hudson River. Like I said, there's a lot of new skyscrapers, residential skyscrapers here in Hell's Kitchen. These between 11th and 12th are some of the newest. Coming up on the left, we're going to have the Silver Towers, which is a really nice residential complex. And those two buildings would be the Silver Towers. And we're coming upon 12th Avenue, and that's pretty much the end of 42nd Street. If you go any further, you're going to get pretty wet. And on the left here, we have Lucky Strike Bowling Alley, which is kind of like a hangout. It's a bowling alley, bar kind of place for local residents. And I guess you don't have to live in this area to visit it, but it's really popular amongst the local residents. And if you look across the street, off in the distance is the Circle Line cruise dock, which is where you can go on a sightseeing cruise. There's one here. They also have one in downtown on the east side, the East River, and they travel around Manhattan for sightseeing tourists. And if you want a really good tip, however, check out the Staten Island Ferry. It's free. They have food on board, wonderful views of the city, and it's a great free trip. And of course, you can check out the Staten Island Ferry on one of my videos here on the New York channel. And we just crossed 12th Avenue, which technically is really 12th Avenue. However, around here, everyone just calls this the West Side Highway. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We walked from river to river. We're now on the west end looking east all the way up 42nd Street. Hope you had fun. I know I did. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, comment, ask some questions, and most importantly, subscribe by clicking on the button on the left. You can visit all of my New York videos by clicking on the top right, or check out my videos on other favorite places to visit by clicking on the bottom right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around the city.